What's up guys, Gongrongzong here. So I've been doing some heroic over the past 2 weeks and damn it's difficult. It's fun, but holy shit can it be a sponge fest. The challenge of the encounter is very fun, don't get me wrong, but damn, I don't know how to feel about emptying an entire clip into an enemy's head and he's still standing there with half health. It takes hell of a lot of effort to do heroic anything successfully, and it's led to a problem that players are beginning to express. The amount of loot that is dropping for the amount of effort that's being spent to complete a heroic anything is miserable. It probably takes 2 to 3 times as long as compared to a challenge mission, with barely any more loot. I'm pretty sure that the devs' own statistics are going to show that very few people are doing heroic. And it's not because it isn't fun, like I already said, it's pretty fun. But at a certain point, the reward for doing it must correspond to its effort. At the end of the day, this is a looter game. Having a singular difficulty that is there for the sake of being there, such as having a very difficult boss in RPG games, makes sense, even if the boss doesn't drop anything significant, like the Omega weapon in the single-player Final Fantasy series. However, while this is a RPG of sorts, it's also a looter game. Having one singular boss of insane difficulty makes sense, a one-off, for the sake of achievement in having killed that boss, but having an entire difficulty level does not. There are already existing examples of very successful looter games that correspond to this, such as the granddaddy of them all, Diablo 2, and its infamous Hell difficulty. The entire difficulty is very difficult, but also rewarding. That is where the highest level of loot drops from. The highest difficulty should serve as a benchmark for people who want to test their skill and various builds against, to see what is the ultimate limit that they can push themselves to, and in doing so, for grinding it out at that difficulty, the reward should also be appropriate for their effort. This also in turn motivates players who are not as skilled to get better, and for those who don't have the appropriate gear yet to grind for it. It naturally generates a positive cycle. Case in point, right? If everyone in real life got the same rewards regardless of how much effort they put in, then what's the point of working hard? You know, that's like a simplified version of how the farms in Russia used to work under communism, and we all know that that was a big flop. On the other hand, if those of us that worked harder got a higher payout, right, in the ideal system, the ones that don't work as hard will be motivated to work harder. So in a nutshell, if gear is simply available to everyone at the same rate, there's little reason to do the higher level content. Again, drawing from my own personal experience in playing WoW and creating content from WoW, this is a huge problem that WoW is suffering from now, in how it just simply gives out free loot to everyone. I get that you have to appease the casual player base, and I'm nothing against people who play this game casually, but please be aware that you can't ever please everyone. You will alienate a group of people by favoring another. WoW has perfected this system for over a decade by giving out the highest gear score to the top end raiders, and only majorly screwing up this entire process in the current expansion by completely undermining it and giving out endgame loot like candy on Halloween. However, I get that Massive doesn't want to lock loot behind certain content, and I actually kind of agree. While WoW's model has worked since its conception almost 15 years ago, I don't think exclusive loot should be locked behind content in The Division 2. It breeds a very elitist mentality and heavily alienates those that don't take part in such activities. So, is Massive already doing the right thing? Some people are calling for exclusive loot to drop in raids, and that's coming from a good place. They want to find the extra motivation to take part in raids. Perhaps a happy medium can be found if they simply increase the rate or amount of loot from higher difficulties, which is already being done somewhat appropriately for normal to challenging. That is their current game plan after all. Give you lots of loot, but the chance to get what you want is very small. Case in point, it had always been their intention for World Tier 5 to drop a range of gear score. I don't know about the long-term repercussions of this method, of simply increasing the quantity of loot for higher difficulties. It does, logically, and eventually, will lead to the higher end players getting better gear, because of the RNG just being too big for a normal level of grind to achieve its absolute min-max, resulting in a similar outcome of higher end content still being the best way to farm gear. However, mentally, it's a different story. Mentally, as a solo player, if I know that the current activities that I am doing can also net me a similar level of gear, it encourages me to keep playing the game, which then might result in a negative opposite of many players going, you know what, man, it's just too complicated and logistically a headache to keep trying to do raids. I can just get whatever I want solo. Again, drawing from my own WoW experience, this is an issue where in the current expansion, high-end raid level loot just drops from everywhere, slowly but surely killing the raid scene. Why raid heroic if I can just do 5-man dungeons and get the same level of gear? So, taking everything into consideration, I think a happy medium can be found with another method, and hear me out here. Perhaps in raids or heroic difficulty, it guarantees you gear score 500 loot. In that way, many players that wish to take the effort to attempt heroic or raiding will sit up and say, I don't know where that Scooby-Doo sound came from. But, higher end players will sit up and say, hey, maybe that seems worth it for me to do. And as we just went through, such a method also does not alienate solo players, as we can still get 500 gear score loot from random drops and every time we level up. I know, this perpetuates an existing issue of it not feeling good in getting less than 500 gear score loot at max level, but that's another thing altogether, which I feel was exaggerated very much from the fact that we were guaranteed 450 loot at World Tier 4. If we got 430 to 450 gear score loot at World Tier 4 from the very beginning, this wouldn't have been such a big problem. But anyway, I think shortening the RNG process for players that want to put in the effort is a viable solution. Shortening the RNG process. In a similar vein, this already works in many free-to-play games that have microtransactions that aren't pay to win, but pay to progress. Glance at any of the popular online card games and you'll get what I mean. Because if Massive wants to make the same loot drop from all sources, it's going to boil down to a state of which method of farming is the most efficient. It always does, it always will. Even if you're going to argue with me that you play the game for fun and only do fun activities, subconsciously, you'll still want to do the activities that reward you the most in the least amount of time. Case in point, currently with Endgame Gear, or at least on my own build, I'm able to solo a level 4 control point in under 10 minutes. Adding together all the other Radiant events that I need to bump it up to a level 4, altogether it probably takes around 20 minutes to do. In that 20 or so minutes, I can safely obtain about 10 high-end yellow items, especially if we count in the 2 gear score 500 ones from leveling up. If it takes say an hour to do a raid, are you telling me that I'm going to get 30 high-end items from doing one raid? Or even if it takes half an hour to do a level 4 control point, then 20 high-end items? My entire screen's filled with them? The whole entire left bar of my screen just one long list of guaranteed yellows? And good god, let's not even talk about the inventory management nightmare that's gonna occur after that. Let's not go there today. So, no way is it going to give me that many yellows. And that's my worry. Added to that, there's all the logistics involved in creating a raid, finding the correct specs, organizing a timing, different classes, and then there's all the social issues, the social dynamics you have to organize, and all of that stuff, which will create a problem in the long run after the initial cool factor of the raid runs out. Why bother doing it? Right? Why bother doing the raid? The only reason that it's fun, and Massive has to make it extremely fun for it to override out base human impulses of wanting better rewards, which just makes their job a lot harder. Case in point, how many of us are working at jobs we don't really like, right? But stay there because of the salary. Yeah, I got you, homie. So in other words, the reward is important, Very important, whether we like to disagree with the concept or not. So honestly, I think the best thing that they can do, other than making raids drop an enormous or a ginormous amount of loot, is to not only drop exclusively 500 gear score items, but to also lock exclusive cosmetics to raids or heroic difficulty. Cosmetics are things that have been proven to work as rewards when locked behind any form of content. These can be things like player titles to actual clothing. Don't just give me a small trinket thingy for killing Wyvern on heroic. Give me something more, perhaps an entire suit, a special mask, or something crazily exclusive, like a cosmetic that changes your weapon model or something. It could even be tied to an insane achievement. Complete a raid 50 times on heroic difficulty. Complete all 3 strongholds 20 times each on heroic difficulty. Complete 500 missions on heroic. As long as the reward is exclusive and good, people will be motivated and happy to grind out such things. Again, the devs should not be afraid of giving out cosmetics, like the recent apparel event, which was done very well. Thank you for that, Massive. When you please your customers, they will be willing to spend real money just to support the game. So, all in all, I don't have the absolute solutions. All I can do is draw from various successful games that have worked in the past and to try and adopt their best practices. I don't envy the balancing job that the devs have to do. But if there's one thing for sure, they have to fix the state that the heroic difficulty is in now, and take it as a quick learning lesson of how to balance the raid when it comes out. If you enjoyed this video, don't hesitate to share it with your friends who might enjoy it too. It helps the channel out a lot. As always, thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you in DC.